Hello, Martin Murray here from the panel at Dublin BIC. It is Tuesday, the 21st of April, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Julie Garland, founder and CEO of Avtrain. Julie, you're very welcome.
Hi, Martin. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on. And
you're very welcome.
Great to be chatting with Dublin BIC again.
So, Julie, can you introduce us to Avtrain, please?
Sure. So Avtrain is a classroom and online training and certification body for drone pilots and operators. We're certified by the we're authorised and certified by the Irish Aviation Authority to carry out the training. And then we do flight tests. And we can do these on all drones up to 75 kilograms, which are pretty big drones. And that's for the fixed wing, which are like airplanes, the single rotors, which are helicopters, and multi-rotors then, which are drones that have kind of 4, 6, 8, or however many rotors on them.
Okay.
So we're certified by the IAA. At the moment it's a 2-day ground course followed by a flight test. But we have new European regulations coming in on the 1st of July this year. And that allows a certification that we provide to not only be a national license, but we can now issue certification towards a European license. So our market has just dramatically increased. However, with COVID, that possibility that regulation may be put off towards the end of the year, because national authorities in different countries have applied to the European Commission to have that delayed because of the difficulty in implementing it given the current remote working conditions of most national aviation authorities. So we're waiting to hear back on that. But either way, we're still moving ahead.
Very interesting. Julie, how did you come to be working in this area?
So I suppose going back to the beginning, I started off my career in aviation. I'm over 30 years in the aviation industry. So I started off my career in aviation as an aircraft maintenance engineer. I then went on and decided that there was other ways to be involved with airplanes, like getting your hands dirty. And I'm going to keep my nails around this way. Normally they're very glossy, but not quite so much at the moment. So I decided to keep my hands a bit cleaner, and I trained as an airline pilot. I became a captain with Air Ireland, and then with the training captain with CityJet. And then I decided that I wasn't going to retire from the left-hand seat of an airplane. So I decided to do something else, and I decided to go into law. I studied law. I became a barrister, and I operated in that realm for about 5 years, really looking towards the aviation law. So I did quite a bit of work with pilots, representing pilots, but also I started getting involved in the drone industry because I could see it was an emerging technology. We were doing a lot of work with the Irish Aviation Authority about the regulating of drones. I've been involved in training pilots since I first started out getting my pilot's license. So we've been approached by the Irish Aviation Authority about setting up a school. So back in 2015, we did 2 things. One is I started was the founding chair of the Unmanned Aircraft Association in Ireland, which is an industry representative body for drone operators and pilots. And also I set up a company at that point called Orpaz Training International, which was to train drone pilots and operators. So we've been doing this since 2015, on and off. Back then it was a part-time. I did it mainly as a hobby, really, at weekends. We did training courses at weekends and certified. It's only since this new European regulation came in that I decided there's really, really big opportunities out there for the training and certification of drone pilots and operators across Europe. So this is when I went into it full time, which is just coming up towards the end of last year. We set up the company called Avtrain.
Okay.
We were very fortunate. We got funding through Enterprise Ireland, and we're an Enterprise Ireland client company. We got to do the Dublin BIC Innovate program, which was really fantastic. Found my tribe. So we really had, there's been such dramatic changes since we started to where we are now. We were due to launch our first course, our Part Sora course, which is a specific operations risk assessment course at Farnborough Air Show, going as an Enterprise Ireland showcase company, which was so exciting for us. This was a global stage, at one of the largest air shows in the world, and being there as a showcase company from Enterprise Ireland. But with COVID, Farnborough Air Show has now been cancelled, but we're still aiming for July for the course. So it'll just be a bit of a quieter launch.
Okay, so Julie, you're an aircraft maintenance engineer, you're a commercial airline pilot, and you're a barrister in law, including in aviation law. So I think we can reasonably say that you bring some expertise to this arena. So thank you very much for being here. Tell me, it's a pretty common journey from delivering classroom-based training to going online. Now, to say it's pretty common doesn't mean it's easy. Can you tell us about that journey for yourself?
Sure. So a couple of different things. One is I have on my board of advisor Ian Dodson, and I also have as a mentor from Enterprise Ireland Anthony Quigley. So I've got two of the real industry experts from the Digital Marketing Institute. Helping me with that process. And this is exactly what they did. They started off with classroom-based training, put it online, and then it's the marketing of that online course that really becomes critical. From my own personal perspective, I've been teaching and I've been, involved in education as, a lecturer in universities. I've trained pilots in cockpit environments, in really difficult learning environments. Cockpit is the worst possible place that you can try and get somebody to learn something. It's noisy, they're distracted, they're flying an airplane, all of these things. And then you're trying to instill information to them at the same time when their stress levels are at a really high. So I've had this really good foundation in how to get a message across to people. But it's all been on personal, it's all been on face-to-face. And, and I'm really engaged with people, and I really enjoy teaching people on a face-to-face basis. So for me to transition to online training has been really difficult because just this whole thing of not having that interactivity, I realized that we're going to have to bring something really special to our online courses in order for the student to really engage with that process. So that's one of the first challenges. As part of the transitioning of this, what I've started doing, and particularly with COVID, is we're still running our classroom-based courses, but we're doing them on Zoom in a virtual classroom. So that's kind of the halfway mark. And that has been such a learning curve for me because, suddenly you don't have the same interaction. You have to keep people on mute. You have to, allow people to raise their hand and ask a question. So it's not the same as you're not really eyeballing people in the same way as you would in a classroom. See the fidgeting as much or anything else. But that's been a really good learning experience from going from, just sitting in a classroom with somebody to doing the virtual classroom, and then we'll transition that ultimately into fully online content.
Very good. So we're hearing a lot about drones now during the pandemic and their increased use. Who are the current most prolific users of drones? And, as a result of the pandemic or otherwise, where do you see it going from here?
Yeah, sure. We have a lot of government agencies starting really kicking off the use of drones. We do a lot of work with different county councils, South Dublin, Dún Laoghaire, various other county councils. And they're using them for things like litter enforcement, and they're using them in areas that there may be antisocial behaviour, and they're using them to monitor situations. The scope for where drones can be used is endless. Irish fisheries, we've done quite a bit of work with the inland fisheries. We've also with private individuals where they could be architects, they're involved in building works, they're involved in surveying, they're involved in even just area photography, movie business. The movie business is one of the really interesting ones because we tend to get the really big drones. Like we've done certification for big guys with 55 kilo drones. They're really big drones carrying around really big cameras. I did want to go, I got an opportunity to do some training down in Italy, and it was on the new James Bond movie. And I said I would have to do some on-site training. It was mandatory that I did. I had to do some on-site training. Unfortunately, it ended up they changed locations, and we did the training with them, but they changed the location of where they were shooting the movie. So, the opportunities for using drones, things like the Coast Guard, we're going to see even just the monitoring of fauna and plants. We've done some work with companies that look after invasive species, and some really interesting applications. A lot of universities are using them now as part of their research programs. And of course, we've got the last mile delivery. I mean, you can't talk about drones in Ireland at the moment without mentioning Mana Aero and Bobby Healy and what they're doing. So, the drone industry itself is going to move on. I know we're talking about who's using them now, but the future of where drones are going is, if anything has come out of COVID-19 is that drones are going to be the way forward. If you look at the ability to remotely deliver something to a person without human interactivity, you look at the ability to get to remote places, you look at the ability to be able to deliver something to somebody in adverse weather conditions and in conditions that a helicopter could never possibly operate in, and that it might be dangerous to send a person because of our social distancing protocols that we're going to have in place. So the future of drones has, dramatically increased. But Bobby's there, and he's doing all of his trials at the moment, based on, they were doing them with food deliveries, but now they've pivoted the company to medical supplies and test kits. So it's really interesting to see how the industry itself is changing at the moment.
Yeah, and all the benefits you mentioned there, and on top of that, much more environmentally friendly in many cases compared to having a truck on the road or a car or even a bicycle, much safer than having a bicycle on the road delivering something.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other agencies that will really come on board, Dublin Fire Brigade do quite a lot with it, but you will see that ultimately, police forces, Coast Guard, all of these different agencies using search and rescue, surveillance, they're areas where drones really come to the fore as well, and also then antisocial, things like crowd monitoring, antisocial behavior, all of those things where anything, we call it the 3D. So if it's dull, if it's dirty, or if it's dangerous, then a drone should be doing it.
Very interesting.
So, yeah, 3 days.
I know it's probably a bit outside your area at the moment with the limit being 75 kilos, but are we going to see autonomous drone taxis anytime, do you think?
So the new regulation, and when I say we do drones to 75 kilos, we can certify for larger drones than that. Right. We just apply into the Aviation Authority, but the Aviation Authority keep control because they don't want us certifying drones up to, like these little airplanes running around the place, and they don't have control over them. So we do it on an individual basis once we go above 75 kilos. But the new regulation has 3 categories. It has open, specific, and certified categories of risk. And the way the drones will operate in the future are on the risk to uninvolved persons. So if there's no risk at all, or very minimal risk, they'll operate in the open category. If there's some kind of risk and you need to carry out some kind of risk assessment and you need to mitigate that risk, they'll operate in the specific category. And then the certified category, which there isn't regulation for yet, but it is coming down the lines, is for carrying passengers, is for carrying dangerous goods, or for operating very large drones over congested and urban areas. So we need regulation for to carry people around. So I think that for starters, we need the regulation, and then we need an appetite for it. Do you really want to get into your taxi and just program in, say, go home, and for this thing without you having any control over it? I know maybe I'm just a bit more of a control freak, but I certainly would want to I would want to be flying at home myself.
And not hear the football results and the solution to every problem in the world from the taxi driver.
Yeah, absolutely. I love taxi drivers. They rule the world. They know everything.
My last question to you, Julie. Working in enterprise support as we do in Dublin BIC, we're always interested to know how friendly or unfriendly Ireland is as a place to start up a business. Has there been strategic advantages for you with Avtrain in starting your business in Ireland?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, for sure. I mean, just the support network that's there, the infrastructure that's there. I mean, we went through, as I said, we're an Enterprise Ireland client company, and to have that support from Enterprise Ireland has been incredible. As I said, went through the Dublin BIC Innovate program. That was absolutely unbelievable. And the tribe that I certainly, that all of us there found, we're in touch. As you know, we're all in touch with each other daily. And that support network in itself, particularly through times like this where we're all startup businesses, and that support network that's there has been incredible. The support from Dublin BIC themselves, but Enterprise Ireland have really come to the fore in this, and they're shining out. And the LEOs as well. I know some people involved. I'm involved in the Going for Growth program at the moment as well, which has been amazing too. And I know quite a few that are involved there are involved with LEO still, and the LEOs they're really getting a really good shout out as well. So, coupled with that, I mean, we have an aviation authority here in Ireland that has been promoting this industry and wants to see drones at the forefront. And they want to see Ireland at the forefront as a centre of excellence for drone operations and for training, certification, for allowing you've got big swathes of open countryside and everything else. There's no reason for us not to be using Ireland really as a test bed for international programs. And so we've got, everything. The environment of starting up for a startup is incredible, but also specifically in the drone and in the aviation world. Ireland punches way above its weight in aviation terms generally, but with drones, we've really got the support of the Aviation Authority. So that's made a really tremendous. The other thing, I mean, with COVID-19, we've really seen a change in people's attitudes towards drones, I think, as well, which is really, it's going to be a positive from the industry's point of view. But also people's attitudes towards the e-learning side, I think. So I know we're talking about the startup side, but just on the e-learning side, this whole thing has been, the adoption of e-learning has changed people's entire focus. And it's been exponentially increased as to how companies are going to go about, their future training techniques. So that's been really positive. But just going back, the investment an eye on what piece is going to be like though from now on. And I do think we're going to come into a very different environment with regards to looking for investment when we're trying to seek investment from investors into startup businesses, because the businesses that are the amount of businesses that are going to fail just on the foot of this, when you look at the aviation industry, and every day there's between 1 and 2 airlines having examiners appointed, going into receivership, going into liquidation. So the aviation industry is on its knees. So trying to get people to invest in an aviation related product, you know, we're going to come up against some barriers. I do think the fact that it's a drone is going to break down some of those barriers. But yeah, I think we're going to certainly have our work cut out for us over the next 12 to 18 months in the investment environment. Not just, you know, any startup is going to have that. I think the due diligence is going to be stricter. The protocols for the risk is going to be much, investors are going to be much more risk averse as we go forward.
Okay, well, it's often said that absolutely key for success in a startup business is getting your timing right. And you're coming to this at a time when there's this regulatory change that's given you access to the whole European market. As you say, people do have a new disposition towards online learning, and we're finding drones pushing their way into many, many more applications. So you seem to be somebody who is able to get the timing right. Very good. Julie, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Wishing you every success with Avtrain.
Thanks, Martin. It's been such a pleasure.